Everyone, welcome to another Cosmic Cuppa with Jude. Cuppa's at the ready to take a deep sip of a wonderful evening with a wonderful lady, our beautiful Debby Emily. How are you, Debby?
I'm very well, thank you, Jude. I'm really happy to be here again talking to you.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to have you back on again. We've had Debby on once before and she's very kindly consented to being with us again this evening. So, Debby, I'm going to read out your bio. She is a highly skilled and qualified practitioner with over 30 years professional experience. She is a pioneer and visionary, often being the first to adopt new methods and techniques. Being the youngest of 10 children, she was immersed in a plethora of interests and came into this world steeped in conversations about past lives, spirits, telekinesis, deep space, music, art, science, and much more. Anything and everything spiritually based was openly listened to as being absolutely normal, which led to starting her own spiritual journey at the age of 12. Having had a negative experience in her late teens, she shut down for a few years. When she opened back up to learn Reiki, she heard a loud, rapturous applause from the universe. Little did she know that never-ending journey of learning was only just beginning. As a result, she now holds many qualifications and certificates in numerous modalities and has become a blender, pulling on whatever is needed in the moment. She has been working as a sound healer for 8 years or more and has created her own modalities: quantum holographic healing, reading using frequency, and metaphysical holistic coaching, and we will be talking a little about these. This talk today will be about some of the discoveries that have been gifted to her and also what we've just been speaking of, including a little more that will come to light as we go through. Some of Debby's amazing achievements are having a diploma in life coaching, systematic kinesiology level 5, touch for health, kinesiology level 4, kinergetics level 4, a form of energetic kinesiology, certified master practitioner, trainer in emotional freedom techniques, EFT, matrix re-imprinting, advanced practitioner, former trainer, neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, Reiki 3rd degree master teacher, meta medicine, similar to German new medicine, sound healer, biofield tuning, reconnective healing, certificate in nutritional health care, certificate in adult teaching. Accreditations and certifications include being an accredited senior member of accredited counsellors, coaches, psychotherapists, and hypnotherapists, certified hearth math practitioner, active member of the Association of Comprehensive Energy Psychologists, member of EFT International, and a certified member of the International Institute of Complementary Therapies. So Debbie, welcome back. That's a plethora in itself of amazing qualifications. So thank you for coming on to a Cosmic Cuppa with us this evening. How are you?
No, I'm very well, Jude. Thank you. And thank you for that introduction. I couldn't have written it better myself.
Tonight is going to be an insightful and wonderful evening. And I'm immensely looking forward to hearing more about your work and passion in the quantum healing field, Debbie. We know that everything is sound, frequency, and vibration. Tesla said, as we know, if we understand the power of the 3, the 6, and the 9, we will understand the creation of the universe. And just as an aside, I found out that the base chakra resonates to the 3, the 6, and the 9. I thought that was interesting. Creation uses energy, frequency, and harmonics, utilizing sound currents and light. It makes sense that the more we understand these principles, the more we understand the reality around us and that we live in a created matrix. Knowing this, we understand that we can use the above principles to change the vibratory matrix of the body. We are calling this Cosmic Cuppa from limitation to liberation, understanding and overcoming beliefs, a wonderful topic to discuss, exploring beliefs and cravings. Debbie, shall we get started?
Why not? As we're all here, that'd be a great thing to do.
Can we first please talk about tapping and emotional freedom techniques, the difference between the two and what they each offer? Thanks, Debbie.
Sure, yeah. That subject is very dear to my heart. And as you read out there, my label, my title is the Certified Master Practitioner Trainer in EFT Emotional Freedom Techniques, which is otherwise known as tapping. And that's where people get confused, and it can cause a little distress out there when people get this confused. And a lot of people refer to EFT as tapping. But I've been involved with that for about 23, 24 years, not very linear, but something like that. And my study was under Gary Craig, who's the founder of EFT, and Patricia Carrington, who worked very closely with him. So that's my original certification, is from Gary Craig. And the tapping analogy actually came from Nick and Jessica Ortner, they're amazing, and they are the ones that have really put tapping on the map. And they do the Tapping World Summit. They've been doing it for many, many years. I got involved in some of it, but I don't anymore. And so I think that's partly where the confusion comes, because they called it the Tapping World Summit when part of it is EFT. And the basic differences that we can go into in a bit more detail is that with tapping, that's your self-help tool. And I do consider tapping to be one of the best self-help tools in the world today, because you can do it on yourself, for yourself, anytime, any place, anywhere. And it works on the sensations in your body. And then we have EFT, Emotional Freedom Techniques, where you do need a practitioner to work with that. And the reason for that is it uses language, it uses wordings, it uses NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and it's very specifically guided in certain ways. There are so many different techniques within EFT that it can take absolutely ages to learn it properly. You know, level 1 is over 2 days, level 2 is 3 days, and level 3 is, again, it depends who's teaching it, 2 or 3 days. But between that, there's lots of case studies and mentoring, and all of these things go on with emotional freedom techniques. With tapping, it is purely getting your fingers and tapping on certain places of your body. So that's the basic difference between the definition of the two. But to go into detail of what you can work with tapping and what you need a practitioner for, would you like me to do that now?
That would be wonderful. Yes, please.
Okay. So with tapping, it is literally on yourself for yourself. And when I teach this and when I ever talk about it, the first thing I say is you can never do it wrong. Never do it wrong. You can only do it better. So some tapping is better than no tapping at all. And as with anything, you mentioned like the quantum world type thing, intention is everything. And with tapping, that's exactly what it is. You put your intention with your attention on a particular place in your body. For example, say if you have a pain in your shoulder, you would tap on a particular point, which I will go through, and focus where that pain is. What does it feel like? Is it hot? Is it burning? Is it just about right here in a little dot, or does it feel like it's the whole of the shoulder? Very, very specific. And when you focus on something, if you haven't been focusing on it before, of course you're going to feel it a lot more. And so one of the things that can often come out from tapping is that it makes me feel worse. And I say, yeah, that's a good thing, because you're putting your attention in there with your intention for it to get better. And as soon as it increases, there's a change, and that change is good. And that's when you just keep tapping and tapping and tapping, and you'll notice a bit of a release. And finally, particularly with pain, it can move to different parts of the body. As you chase the pain, that's a particular modality in teaching EFT. And you just follow it wherever it is, however it feels like, sharp, burning, coming from the outside, the inside, etc. And it will eventually dissipate. And you can do this on yourself, for yourself, anytime, any place, anywhere. And that goes for absolutely anything at all when we're looking at tapping. And there is mostly no wording involved in that. It is purely inwards into your body, focusing on what is there. So the analogy I often give, the difference between tapping and EFT, is imagine you were at school giving a talk, 10, 12 years old, whatever age you may have been, and you fluffed your words up, or they laughed at you, they made fun of you. And from that point onwards, you really hated public speaking. And that's one of the most common fears out there, is public speaking. And so you wanted to feel better about it. You joined Toastmasters and you're sitting there and you're about to get up and give your talk. And all of a sudden you feel your throat get dry, you feel your stomach knot up, and you could go into a cold sweat if it's really bad. Excuse me. And they're the sensations that are going in your body. I tend not to use the word feelings because that can be quite a different thing. So I say sensations. And one of the reasons for that is that slightly disassociates you from the feelings. So feelings are more for the EFT, emotional freedom techniques. So the sensations just takes it at one level apart. So you then don't go deep into the feelings and what caused it. And that's where things can open up. So the sensations in your body, so you just tap on those sensations. You're sitting there waiting to speak and you can feel all of this happening, and you just tap on that. And yes, I will go through the tapping point shortly. And then you can get on the stage, hopefully, and speak more calmly. But there is a discrete tapping that I've got on my website that you can learn should you wish. And then we get to emotional freedom techniques where, say, you'd come to see me as a practitioner, and we would then say, well, it was due to when you were 10 years old, you were on the stage and this event happened. I never use the word trauma anymore. I use event. And as a result of that, I would then tap on you with the classic sayings, perhaps that's where all the wording come in, even though, I was 10 years old when this happened, I'm a good person. That's your classic EFT statement, and other wordings can be thrown in that. So that's the basic difference between the two, is that tapping on yourself for yourself, EFT, emotional freedom techniques, you're working with your previous younger self, effectively, and how he or she felt the sensations going through the body at the time, and the things that you were saying to yourself at that time, like, oh, I'm no good at public speaking. I'll never be able to speak in public. I get nervous when I speak in public. Everyone's going to laugh at me. And all the things that you created, those beliefs that you created in your head at that split moment in time when that event happened to trigger you. And you would generally, and until you clear it, you would be triggered by those things forever until it gets cleared, because memories get held in the body as emotions, and that's what happens. So that's why these feelings come up, is because there's memories behind them. Does that make sense?
Absolutely beautifully said. Beautifully said. Makes a lot of sense. And it shows how emotion is held in the body. And this is something that I think a lot of practitioners would be wise to address, that don't at the moment, because we're not just the body. We're body, we're mind, we're spirit. It is all one. And I think you have to get to the cause of a concern. So I don't call them illness, I'd say concern. So getting to the cause of a concern to be able to address the core issues of a concern to release. So
absolutely.
beautiful.
And these concerns, as you said, Jude, is that they get held in different parts of the body. And emotions, memories are stored in parts of the body. And that's going a little bit deeper for the moment, but that's ultimately where it goes to. And so I'll just do a round of tapping just so you know for yourself. I said, feel free to find my website. I've got about 40 something tapping videos in my playlist there. And so again, you can't do it wrong. These are the classic points, just on the side of the hand here, between the bottom of the little finger, just above where the top wrist is. So that point there, where it's bilateral, it's on either hand. And so you just gently tap. So it's just gently pulsing under your skin. Doesn't matter how many fingers you use, 2, 4, whatever's comfortable for you. Most people don't use one, it's usually 2. Myself, I have a habit of doing that, just with 2 fingers. That's just my way. Or 4 on the side of the hand. So you just gently tap on that, and you'd really focus in on what's going on in your body. And you had a little experience of that some time ago, Jude. So you know what I mean, where you just really focus into that area, and that has got your full attention. Your intention is totally in that area. So you just tap on that point for a few times. And the other points that you can use, you can choose to just stay here if you wish. And what I mean by you can't do it wrong any better, if that point isn't causing a shift for you, if that isn't causing a change, and the change can be that it gets worse before it gets better, the pain comes on more, or the sensation, or let's say a memory pops up, and that's where you need EFT, then if nothing is happening, move to another point. So that's what I mean, can't do it wrong any better. So the other points are on the top of the head, should you wish to do that, which is where the soft spot is for a baby, and just gently tap on there on the top. Not too hard. You can miss this out. Some religions will not want to tap on the top of their head, and that's absolutely fine. You don't have to. And then you have where the eyebrow starts, right up against the side of your nose here. So just tap on that point. And again, that's bilateral. So that's either side. It's up to you how you tap. I'm doing it like this, so I don't cover my whole face. And then we're going around the face. So we've got the side of the eye on the bone, not the temple. we'd be tapping for a headache, just on the bone on the side of the corner of the eye, the outside corner. Then we're going round under the cheekbone, under the eye, and then we're moving to above the top lip, under the nose, that point there, under the chin, under the bottom lip, and these are all meridian endpoints or beginning points. So these are all associated with the meridians of the body. And the idea behind tapping is that there's an energy blockage somewhere in your meridian lines. That's the whole thing that EFT tapping is built on. And so by tapping on these meridian endpoints, you are sending a frequency, that pulse of energy through your body to clear that blockage, energetic blockage that's held in these points of your body that you don't know where it's held. Sure, we can find out with muscle testing, we can find out by other means, but why when you can just tap on points of your body and it will release? And what I always say is that imagine where the blockage is. It's like a pipe that goes through your body, an energetic pipe. And so the energy is stuck somewhere in that blocked pipe. You don't need to know where. And as you tap, that impulse is pushing that blockage out, dissipating it, dissolving it in your body. And like any blocked pipe, once you get rid of it, it doesn't come back up. It stays out. And that's the magic, one of the magical things about emotional freedom techniques. Once it's gone, it's gone. It doesn't come back. But you would need a practitioner to help you go through all the different aspects, and I can cover some of those aspects. Make a note for me to cover aspects, June. So there's so much here, if need be. So we've got to here, and then the next point is your collarbone point, so where the bone is. I wore a shirt that you could see. So you've got your collarbone, and just under the collarbone there is a little dip. So that can be known as the K27 point. I tend to do this with my ring finger and my thumb. I just tend to do that because that's comfortable for me. Again, it's bilateral. Whatever works for you, you could just tap on one side. But this is one of the points I personally go to, because when you do it for yourself, on yourself, I encourage you to choose somewhere that is comfortable for you. That is not going to be comfortable. That is more likely to be comfortable because you can rest your elbow somewhere, or if you are in bed, it's easy just to pull your hand over there and just tap, 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 and just rest your whole body. So that's one of my points that I will usually go to, and here, that's one of my points too. There are other points, but the only other one I'm going to show you now is called the gamut, which is between your little finger and ring finger knuckles. In the middle there, you've got these tendons that create a V, and that is where you tap in this point there. That's called the gamut point. Gary Craig used to call it the 9 gamut because you did 9 things with your eyes, etc., rolling them one way, rolling them another way, saying this, saying that, but they dropped that. But I still use this gamut point. I know a lot of EFT practitioners have dropped it, unfortunately. This is related to your fight and flight. So whenever you are in a really stressful situation, particularly with today, what's going on in the world, you know, the stress can just come out of nowhere. You read something or see something or hear something. That's the point I'd encourage you to go to, and just focus on where that is in your body. And that should help to release it. Now, how do you know that this has worked for you? Just tapping alone, that's tapping. There's no wording. You're focusing on your shoulder being sore, and you can tap here, you can go here, you can go here, here. It doesn't matter, really doesn't matter. It is so forgiving. The important thing is that you just do it. Yeah, JDI. So you would know that it worked because you would feel better. The pain would be gone. You wouldn't feel as stressed. It's excellent at calming down the central nervous system. It's really good for calming down anxiety. And it can be used with breath work. It's excellent for using with breath work. And again, it's a combination tool. Tapping is definitely a combination tool. And when you're tapping, you will usually sigh. And it's not this sort of sort of sigh. It's just a natural sigh that can happen. You can yawn just randomly. You'll start yawning. This is the release. This is the pipe being unblocked. You can sigh, you can yawn, you can start laughing. And some people can actually burp when that happens. I know that happens to me sometimes. Oh my goodness. So that can happen to me. It's Ron, my husband, that pointed that out to me, that I did that. I hadn't even heard myself because I was so inside my body that I didn't even hear it. But now he's made me aware of it. Oh, yep, that's released. So be careful if you do this out in public somewhere maybe. But yeah, they're the tapping points, and you can use them in any order, but I do encourage you to use them just generally. It can help you get back to sleep. And there has been a number of these scientific studies. EFT has been around maybe 30 something years. I discovered it very early on. Could have been a bit longer than that. And I do believe it is now where acupuncture was years ago. It is starting to gain in popularity. Part of it has moved on. That has been a huge foundation for me personally, and what I have leapfrogged off into other modalities like matrix reimprinting, and which uses tapping, and then of course my own quantum holographic healing, which is somewhat born out of matrix reimprinting, but there's no tapping involved. It is purely just the tuning forks. So is that
Thank you so much, Debbie. That's very valuable information. One of the questions at the back of my mind on pain is, we know that pain can be a reason for a concern in the body. What would you say around that? If you've got pain because something is not correctly aligned in the body, maybe there's a tear or musculature or even bone, sinew, how would that relate with tapping, and where does that sit, and what would you advise?
I try not to give advice because I can get into trouble. I can recommend.
What is your opinion and your understanding, with a caveat on it that this is your opinion?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm just very mindful of where things stand nowadays with what we can and cannot say. That's all. So where there's a physical problem that you're talking about, I think, Jude, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Where there's a physical problem, then of course you need someone to help you with that physical condition. But it can help to manage the level of pain, because pain is a disruption in the energy body. That's how it is seen in my world. And so by tapping, you can certainly help reduce the level of pain. But because there is a physical problem, the chances of it coming back are much higher. But it should definitely help you manage the pain.
I love that. Thank you for quantifying that, Debbie. And that makes a lot of sense. Let's talk about matrix re-imprinting. How does this affect the body? And what are the principles for healing with this technique? You sort of glanced into it. How does that work, please?
So matrix reimprinting was born out of EFT, emotional freedom techniques. It is founded by somebody called Carl Dawson. There were 19 EFT masters endorsed by Gary Craig. I really wanted to be the 20th, but I didn't get round to it. I was on my way moving to New Zealand-ish in transition at that time. And but anyway, so I learned with him, with Carl Dawson, and he founded Matrix Reimprinting. And how that came about was he was working with a client. And remember I said about the public speaking, and so you can work on yourself, or even somebody can tap for you as well, because sometimes tapping for someone else can pick up your hand and tap on you, and that's fine, just with tapping, with no wording. That can sometimes work better, get yourself out of the way a little bit more. And tapping in front of a mirror can be very powerful for yourself. So I just wanted to throw that in there too. So you've got the public speaking, you've got all this anxiety and whatever going on in your body, and you do some tapping and you go, feel a bit better. And then you have EFT, emotional freedom techniques. What was he or she doing? What was he or she thinking? What beliefs did he or she create? Which undoubtedly could have been, I'm not good enough, perhaps. There could be many beliefs that come out of that. And so we've just taken one step away from the physical body, looking at still yourself, but remembering what that 10-year-old went through. So that's tapping and emotional freedom techniques. Matrix reimprinting takes that more into, I use the word quantum field, being that we then look at that younger you on the stage talking. And so you, Jude, would be in front of me. I would be tapping on you, or we can do it remotely now via Zoom or whatever. I would be tapping on you, but you would visualize your younger self and connect with her. And you would imagine tapping on her. You would imagine getting the information from her, because she is the key at this point to everything that's happened to you, because it's what she thought, what was going in her mind, what was happening in her body, that then still affects you today. And so that younger you, Carl Dawson called an energy conscious hologram, an echo. And so that was extremely powerful, extremely powerful. And I have worked with clients who have come to me for EFT, emotional freedom techniques, and then had a matrix reimprinting session some years after, and on the same thing. And there have been some huge shifts that have happened because their younger self has held all that information that they hadn't got to before. And so when you clear that, that's a whole nother dimension of clearing, of healing, if you will, which is quite phenomenal. And
Debby,
then, go ahead.
Sorry, I absolutely love that, because you're getting to the crux of what was going on for the younger you client at the time. So you're getting to the cause in real time through the quantum field. I absolutely love, and this is a modality that you came to understand would work well, obviously.
Yeah, that's where I studied for a whole year. Every week, I had to go back through my notes. Was it every week or was it every month? Because it was so long ago. Every single week, I did a different aspect of matrix reimprinting, a different emotion, a different, I don't know whether it's anxiety or depression or past lives or abandonment. There was a different one over, let's say, 50 weeks. And that was with Sasha Allenby, who co-wrote the book with Carl Dawson. I just happened to stumble across matrix reimprinting just as they were launching all these trainings. So I got on the first one. How coincidental. And gotta love it, haven't you?
Absolutely do.
Yeah. And then pretty much just as I'd finished that year, it wasn't a certification. I just did it. I got up at stupid o'clock in the morning because they were doing it in England, and I never once worried about it. I loved it so much. Then Carl Dawson came to Australia to train. So I naturally went to him, and that's where I got the certification. And because I'd had the whole year doing everything with Sasha, you know, that's 52 weeks non-stop, or 50 weeks non-stop. That's a long time. That is a long time. And he certified me as being an advanced practitioner, and then I got certified as being the trainer for matrix reimprinting. But there was one aspect there where, I mean, I've been doing this for the year, and, you know, working with people with demos and what have you. And there was one lady there, I don't remember her name, it was such a long time ago. She had multiple personality disorder, and he paired me up with her. I'm going to just
Delightful.
ghosting.
Wow.
And I looked at him like, what? And he went, you'll be fine. I'm like, thanks, Carl. But luckily, she knew a little bit about matrix reimprinting. She hadn't done, you know, the year that I had done, but she'd read the book and knew a little bit about it. But with matrix reimprinting, say yourself, Jude, you would be communicating with your client, your younger you, and so you could help me as the practitioner to know what's going on. Yeah. And so with this client that had 7 personalities, the first and only time I've ever worked with that, she said that matrix reimprinting is the only thing that's ever worked for her, because it is a disassociation. So you've got tapping on your body, and then you're, you know, tapping sort of with the client, with you, I'm tapping with you, for example, and then you've got the disassociation of looking, working with how your younger self felt, and then looking at your younger self. So it's just another level of disassociation. And there are many ways to disassociate with using matrix reimprinting. And it can be a very, very good way to work with that big T trauma word, if you will, because you never need to really revisit it. You never do. And I almost never, ever revisit any physical trauma. It is always working with the energy of it, or working with the hologram of the energy of it. It's never, I never work on the body with those things. It's just too painful, too painful. And you don't have to. You don't have to. So there are, well, there's so many stories I could tell you about tapping and EFT and matrix reimprinting. Said that multiple personality one is an amazing story, because for me, it shows the power of what working in the quantum field can do. I said, and it was using tapping on your body. So I'd be tapping on you, you'd be imagining tapping on your client, your younger self.
That is beautiful. Can I ask, in that instance, because this is fascinating, she had 7 entities with her.
7 personalities.
So they're not separate entities or souls?
That's a good question. They could well have been. They could well have been. Usually, and I'm not a psychologist, it's called energy psychology. Emotional freedom techniques is called energy psychology. But usually when there's some sort of, we'll say, a big trauma, that's when allegedly the personality can split off. Now, I didn't go into depth with her because I didn't need to, but I understood she had had some trauma, but whether she had had 7 layers of trauma, and yes, they all had different personalities. And in this particular session, I clearly remember that she gathered them all together around a piano. Yeah. And they were all worked with all at once. Now, she must have had some skill herself to be able to do that in the matrix, in the quantum holographic field. And yeah, so to answer your question, were they entities? Maybe. Maybe. Were they other past lives? Maybe.
Were these entities told what was happening and that they would go where there was rest and peace for them? Did any of that come into it? Or how did the bringing together of or releasing them work?
That's a very good question. And it's going on my memory banks from quite a long time ago now. And I don't recall exactly how that happened. I don't recall the exact session, and I almost never do for any of my sessions because everything just comes through, it just flows. But all I can go by is that she said that that's the only thing that helped her. So we would have been working with how the particular personalities were, but somehow she bundled them up. And I don't quite know how she did that, but that's what she did. And we worked with that as a whole. I'm not saying they all disappeared and dissipated, but she claimed that she was not affected by them as much. They didn't take over her as much. And I must admit, I always find that fascinating because, you know, in this body, you know, we could have a serious condition, but with a multiple personality, when that comes on, that's gone. So where is it really?
Interesting questions, aren't they?
Yeah, they
That's
are.
fascinating. But to be more in control of yourself, of your psyche, of your own awareness, which is paramount to my way of thinking, is key. And to have that she had more power in herself, over herself and her beingness.
Yes.
So the soul was more conscious within the body for her. That's an amazing thing in itself, isn't it? And I'm sure she received greatly from that in the way of healing.
Yes. Yeah, very much so. Very much so. You know, and I think she had done, obviously, she had done quite a bit of her inner work with matrix reimprinting, because when you can get in that state of disassociating, and that's something I've always personally been able to do, I have been able to use matrix reimprinting and be tapping on myself as I've been walking down the road. You know, I've just been able to do that. You know, some can and some can't. And so maybe she could do that. I just remember being overwhelmed when Carl passed me and went, "You'll be fine."
It's amazing what you learn when you're thrown in the deep end, isn't it?
Oh, isn't it just? It just,
Can
yeah.
we please discuss the quantum holographic healing that you mentioned? It sounds extremely interesting. Working with the quantum field, which is what you have been talking about. Does that work similarly to matrix reimprinting, or is that different again? And how have you applied that in your practice?
It is, the similarity is what Carl calls the echo. But the echo we're dealing with in matrix reimprinting is your younger self. And your younger self can be 10 minutes ago, or it can be 25, 30, 50 years ago. It's your younger self in this lifetime that we recognize ourselves in. So with matrix reimprinting, I was working, sharing a session, doing a swap session with a friend in Spain. I was here. Yeah, I was definitely in New Zealand at the time, and I still am. And I remember working with her, and I just saw her in the picture. And so I was in the same image that she was, but I didn't know what she was seeing. I knew what I was seeing. And I was looking at the back of her head, and she was looking at the front of her. And so with my quantum holographic healing, I asked her some questions. Well, is this in your picture? Is this in your picture? And she said, yes, it is. I said, I can see you. And every time I say that, I just get shivers all over my body.
That is fabulous.
So I was there with her.
Yes.
And
in now time, you
yeah,
were there
that's right.
within the process.
Yes. Yeah. Within
In a
that.
way of remote viewing, would you say?
Well, I'm trying to figure out what this really is, but may never know. But yeah, so with that, I helped her there in that picture at that time. That's what I did. And so it was some time later that this came back, although I had seen bits and pieces now and then. You know, my background is in this area. You know, it's not unfamiliar territory for me. Whatever shows up, I'll generally go with it, and whatever it may be. And just as a slight sidetrack, I'll just bring this in because this is new information for me personally. And I've been listening to a guy called Paul Wallace recently. Fascinating, talks about the Bible, etc. Fascinating guy. And he was saying about when there's been, I think it might have been in one of his books, if someone has had a hit on the head, a severe hit on the head, then it can create special gifts somehow. I can't remember his exact wording. And I only found this out maybe a couple of weeks ago. And I've just been sitting with that thinking, well, why is it that when I was younger, I could do these things that I could do, you know, that I thought was perfectly normal and no one else of my age at that time could do. Nowadays, children can do lots of wonderful things. And then I realized when I was just a toddler, I fell off a swing and I hit my head. I've still got the scar to prove it. And I thought, oh, I had a hit on the head. Maybe that opened up some other things. I thought, well, that's interesting. And then I thought, yeah, I had another hit on the head when I was 18 and had concussion and lost my memory. Then I had another hit on the head and got concussion when when this other event happened. So I've had lots of bangs on the head. And
My goodness.
yeah. And so that led me to think, well, is this how all of this has been opening up for me personally? You know,
Possibly.
yeah,
Possibly. And then possibly it was your destiny for that to happen in that way.
possibly. Yeah,
And I have heard that before, that certain places on the head, if they are hit a certain way, can certainly open up these psychic abilities. It can help open up the pineal gland, do all sorts of things,
yeah.
depending on which area is affected.
Yeah,
It's
that's what
fascinating.
it is. Yeah, yeah. Because when I was at school, myself and my girlfriend, you know, we were really the kooky ones. I'd be given a book that thick. One of the history books, I think, was one of the main ones. And they'd asked me to put my hand on it. I hadn't opened it before. It was a book we'd never read in the class, and try and find out what was in there. And I remember drawing this outline of a picture of what I saw, and they flicked through the book and found it about 3/4 of the way down. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, and my friend and I were levitating people in class.
Oh my goodness, Debbie, were you really?
Yeah, you were. Yeah, I had to contact my friend and say, did we do that? And said, yeah, we did. And
Wow,
yeah, I thought I dreamed it. But that
that's
could
fascinating.
be why these things, you know, my left brain always wants to know why, you know, my right brain just enjoys it. But yeah, so just going back to quantum holographic healing and this image that I was looking at with my friend in Spain, that started opening up a little bit more. You know, I'd had the 3 bangs on the head by then, and it just started opening things up more. And I was working with a client in my home, and just before she stood up, all I saw was 2 black feet, 2 huge black feet with like chains around them. And I'm like, okay, what am I seeing here? And I said something to her about that, and she was like, you're crazy, Debbie, you know, and left. She couldn't relate to that at all. And so it started to come on gradually, really, is what I'm trying to say. And then it really came on fully during our sacred seclusion lockdown, because I'd been using the tuning forks off the body. I'd stopped tapping as much. I was using the tuning forks. The frequency I generally use personally is more based on my own intuition, and also the frequencies that perhaps the client likes or even dislikes, because the dissonance frequency can be really powerful, as well as the one that really sits with them. And it's just knowing which is which. And so I was taking it off the body, which had been off the body anyway, because that was my gift as a young child. And as I was doing that, I started seeing these images. I've always been visual. And then it started going to what came through me as past lives. And when I'm there, I see 360 degrees around me in full color and in finite detail. You had a little bit of experience with that. And so the distance sessions I much prefer because I can really get myself deep into it. I'm in that zone. I'm in that time. I'm in that space. Biblical times, whether it's, I've been in where the Eskimos are and seen these things of deep sea where buried ships have been, all over the place, in the Colosseum and just some really random places. Recently I was in a house in old London. It was a 3-story house, and I could, I was describing the bedpost and the curtains and what was out, and just the whole thing. I'm there. And I went through a portal recently with one guy because he had some special gifts, and there was a portal came up in one session, but we didn't investigate it. So what I'm doing there is connecting with the energy of the body. So let's say this man said to me, what special gifts do I have? I know I've got a purpose. Can you find out what that purpose is? And why don't I know about it? So I was chiming the tuning forks, connecting with his intention, which is usually something along those lines. It's never about, will you heal this? Will you heal that? That's not quantum holographic healing. The healing happens as a byproduct. And so with the chiming the tuning forks, I sense the energy with the tuning forks. To me, that energy is like a barcode. And as that barcode expands, there's frequency in the barcode. And frequency, as we know, contains information. And it can be dissonance, or it can be, a smooth pattern. And so that information is fed through me in either words, images, songs, whatever it might be, feelings, sensations. And I just get myself out of the way. I don't have to practice that, detachment. I can naturally do that. And just speak what comes through while also sensing the energy. And some of it can be really thick, can be really strong. The tuning fork can drop. It can shake, it can do lots of things, if I allow the tuning fork to do its work rather than me trying to hold on to it and push it through. And so with this particular man, this portal came about, and I had to go with him through the portal. That's what I was told. And as we got through, we were in a completely different world. It was an alien world, completely. And there were 2 people came to meet us, and immediately they put cloaks over us saying, you're not to be seen here. What are you doing here? So they saw me, and I was communicating with them. And I said, well, he's here. I had to bring him because he needs to know what his life purpose is and what he's to do here. And they said, right, come in here. And they took us in this room. And I can still see the room very clearly. It was sort of like a scientific classroomy room. And they sat me over one side and took him round another part where I could see him. And I had to say to the being that was near me, I can't hear what's being said. He said, it's not for you to hear. And I had to have this conversation saying, well, I need to hear because I need to tell him because he won't remember. And so they told me some things, but they wouldn't tell me everything. And then they escorted us out back through the portal. So all this is happening while these things are going on. And I've been seen in these areas more than once. And there are times, again, where I really have to cloak myself just to do the work. But what happens there also is that that's a multidimensional life. It can go to ancestral lives, and you could be your great, great, great grandfather. So it's a past ancestral life. There have been concurrent lives that you are living now also in another dimension. That has come up. And what predominantly comes up is what's known as past lives. And when a past life shows up in my world, it's because there's been an event of some kind. And so what I'm being taught, because this has all been taught for me, because it's brand new, when the past life shows up, we go to see that past life and whatever that past life is doing. And an event would have happened at some point. Now, the event would have shattered their holographic resonance body. So, for example, one of the main stories I tell is where this girl or woman had abandonment issues with her mother. And so we looked at that, and it immediately took me to biblical times. And so I could see 360 around me in full color. This woman running with the baby in her arms away from King Herod's men. I saw their uniform and I'm thinking, I'm sure that's not what it looked like. Not that I'm biblical, but I didn't think it looked like that. And she was trying to offload the baby to a friend to save the baby. But that was taken as abandonment by the baby and then brought into this lifetime, continuing that abandonment. So that baby ascended during that time of King Herod. And so what that meant was the holographic body should have ascended fully. And so I'm discovering these aspects out, that it's with a particular aspect that we're working with. So with abandonment, instead of being 100% complete, it might have been 90% complete. And so the other 10% is what's left there. That's the echo, if we can call it that, from matrix reimprinting. And so I work with that, and we work with that and help that other 10% ascend to become complete with its holographic body. And from that point forward in the quantum world, when that holographic body is complete in that biblical time, in that point of space and time, it never happened going forward. It never.
This is fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
There was no gap, because
Wow.
where there's a gap, your holographic body is, 90% with abandonment. You go into another body, and this is the way I have to say it now, you carnate into another body. I've had this drilled into me so many times with this modality. So you carnate into another body, and so you're already 10% less with abandonment. So that has a propensity to happen again. And so it happens again. And so you've got 80%, and then you get to 60%. And people say in this body here and now will say, I've got such issues with abandonment, and everyone I work with, nothing works. Nothing works. I've tried everything. Because their holographic bodies are still running around in these other points of time and space with that huge gap missing in the holographic resonance field. And when it's together, it seems to go away.
That's amazing, Debbie. Is that what we would have known as soul retrieval, or is that different again?
Someone said that to me. I don't particularly see that as soul retrieval.
Mm-hmm.
And someone said that some shamanic traditions do this sort of thing. I've never had soul retrieval. I've never done soul retrieval. I wouldn't call it the soul, because there's only a part missing. For me, it is the holographic resonance body. It's like having a glass and shattering the top out of it. You've still got the whole glass, but there's just a bit missing. Or I often say you've got a 100-piece puzzle and take a piece away. And then at each new lifetime, you take another piece out and another piece out. And before long, you don't have the complete picture.
Yeah. I love the wording of echoing in points in space and time. It actually fits better in its wording, doesn't it?
I
With
think so. I like
these
that.
issues that can come up with people where they haven't fully incorporated, as you say, fully incorporated into a new body.
Mm.
And so they are not whole in themselves.
No, and I think we're all running around with these things happening.
So
I've been
we're not all here. We're not all here, Debbie.
We're not all there. No, we're not all there. That's how I, well, I say that's how I see it. That's just what's been coming through me. And yes, it said it can go absolutely anywhere at all. I don't control it, and I don't want to know anything about the client, nothing. So people I've worked with, again, you go to my YouTube channel, there's 3 videos I've recorded of different things. There's one Egyptian one where it's beautifully sad, where that's about how they decided to swap roles, and that was really, really enlightening for me. And then I haven't recorded this one yet, this goes back quite a few years, where a couple wanted to know what past lives they'd had together. That's all they wanted to know. And they each booked a session each. And my mind was like, why are you asking me? It's going to be the same thing twice. You've paid me twice. And so I did the first one. These 4 past lives came up. Went to do the second one thinking I'm going to get exactly the same. Here we go. My left brain kicked in. And no, I got different. Except for one. And what that taught me was that with that type of thing, it was the prominent character that came through, the dominant character. And the other one was there somewhere in the background. There was one of them, he was a lion tamer, and she was in the Barnum and Bailey times. I couldn't make it up. I wish I'd had this imagination. In the Barnum and Bailey times, and she was a medium, and he was afraid of her gifts. And the only one that was the same was that they were brother and sister in the 1920s. And both of those had the same energy and with the same images. Whereas I never saw her as the medium when he was a lion tamer. And I never saw him. I'm trying to think what else she did. I can't remember that. She was a samurai warrior and he was a concubine. And it was just fascinating, all these things that come through. I never know, but it all seems to relate, And one about a year ago now was somebody came along, again, out of curiosity. There's a few things going on with them. It's an in-person session, and I picked up something around their body here, and I was working with the energy, and this past life just went whoosh, came through. And he was a Saxon warrior. The client knew about the Saxon warrior, and he called him Uhtred, which apparently is a common name, I don't know. And Uhtred took a blow with a sword in here. And so I was still working with the energy anyway, in the scene, in the battlefield with Uhtred and everything that was going on, saw everything he was dressed in, the whole battle scene. And the energy clears with the tuning forks, it helps to move it away, and the pain goes away, because that's where it came from. So
this is wonderful therapies. And being so gifted is such a gift and a treasure to humanity, Debbie. I had a thought that, do you think you came through with some of those gifts anyway, head injury aside? Or maybe they exacerbated your gifts more?
I don't know the answer to that, because I come from a big family, and some of us have gifts, but none have developed them the way that I have. My grandmother we used to call a witch, but she wasn't a very pleasant one. And I don't really know the answer to that.
And I think the stories you're telling us, which are obviously not just stories, this is what is real. The quantum field, it's the all it is, where you're able to heal at such deep levels, or allow the client to heal themselves, really. The other thing I'm quite interested in, as an aside, is what you were talking about, going through portals. You talked about cloaking.
Yes.
Can you explain how you cloak yourself? I mean, imagine you haven't got the Harry Potter veil that you put over you.
I
Or
do
is it with
sort of.
intent that you do that? What do you do?
It is with intention. I have gone to some not nice places as well with some very deep dark energy. There was this one client, oh my word, she had had a rough ride through life and there was all these bad things happening to her. And I still need to be mindful of this and I'll do it now. I just literally put the cloak over me and that's what I do, like this big hood and I'm just invisible. Yeah, cannot be seen in the
Brilliant,
darkness. Yeah, so I'm
brilliant.
like that. And
Totally with intent.
yes, totally with intention. Yeah, completely. And so that's the only way. If I'm in there and the dark energy's there, I can't say, oh, I'm not working with this, I'm coming out. I had to do something. And so they showed me just cloak yourself, and it's this big, big hood that just comes over, and that's it. I'm invisible. They can't see me. But
Beautiful. When you're in those places, if I may ask, are you only working for the betterment of the client, or do you do something with the dark energy to dissipate? How would that, generally speaking, work with you when you're there?
so with this particular one, there haven't been many of them where the dark energy comes through, but every now and again there is one. And with this particular client, I'm trying to think what happened in the session because I don't remember. We created something. I think she directed it back at them, put up some sort of mirror or something to direct the energy back. And I think it was like dissolving things. I never cut anything because if you cut something, it's going to ping both ways. So if there's any cords, for example, any energetic cords, never cut them because that can really cause trauma sometimes because they've been there so long. So it's always dissolving that type of thing. So yeah, it was just releasing her from their bonds because they did not want to let her go. And it was just a way of getting her out. It was a really deep, dark session. It really was. And I came out there like, oh my goodness, what happened? They're not often draining on me, but that particular one was really heavy and heady. It was. So yeah,
Bless
it's
you.
always for the
Network.
benefit of the client, always.
Yes.
But I don't choose where it goes. If I did, I'd go to lovely, light and fluffy. I've been to Lemuria, and yay, it's been lovely. But that'd be my place to go. But it's just wherever the energy, the frequency is, where it originates from. Follow the thread, so to speak. Go into that world, and it starts to open up a little bit, and maybe takes 5 or 10 minutes for it fully to come through within a session, with a distance session. And if somebody's with me in person and they ask me too many questions or talk too much about, oh, I remember this when I was 8 years old, when I was 12, it just pops me right out. So I have to get back into it. And sometimes their previous self, so with the ascension process, it usually always happens where there is an event there, not just looking at a past life. So there's a differentiation between what was I as a past life, how many past lives have I had, that is showing those past lives, rather than wanting to clear something from a past life. That's where the holographic resonance body has shattered. There's a fractal of that, a portion of the holographic body left behind. So lost my train of thought because I got carried away with that.
What happens? That's where the Cosmic Cuppa starts or continues. We ultimately know we heal ourselves when we visit a physician, in whichever form that takes. We ask for a process to bring us into a healthier state of being. Yes, we have help from viable prescriptions for the body. The mind and spirit are a different matter that, as we know, can affect the physical. You heal you, as you say, Debbie. And you talk about meta medicine.
Oh,
Would
yes.
you like to touch on these aspects, please? How they imprint and how we change the energetic dynamic with meta medicine?
Yeah, metamedicine takes us back to emotional freedom techniques, and that is more of a diagnostic type tool. And there's metamedicine and there's German New Medicine, and the two seems to be very, very similar. I haven't found many differences between them, although I have not studied German New Medicine. I have done just the first level in metamedicine. So with metamedicine, it is that where an event happens, where we came in, where things are stored in the body. And what piqued my attention with that was that I discovered that abandonment is held in the kidneys. That's where energetically it is held. And so from my own personal point of view, my father walked out when I was 1 year old. I never met him. And I had kidney issues as a child, and that piqued my interest. And then there's things like my mother had pancreatic cancer, and the pancreas is to do with starvation existence. And she came through the war and had 10 children. I'm the youngest of 10. And my father walked out when I was 1, leaving her with 7 school-age children. So she very much had a starvation existence in many ways. And that made logical sense. And that's where you then get the other modalities or whatever on top to help them. And there's also, for example, something like breast cancer. I'm not saying this is exactly what causes it, trying to cover my butt, but in metamedicine, German New Medicine terms, that is said to be caused by something to do with a baby. Now, it can happen to men as well as women. And so the baby doesn't need to be a physical baby, but something to do with a business or a puppy or anything like that, what you call your baby. But these events happen when there's a healing. So it's not that metamedicine says this is what's happened to you because there's a dis-ease in your body. It's because the body's starting to heal. And so as part of the healing process, it goes through those parts of the body as the healing process. And so if I can just take another example, a lesser example of something like eczema. Eczema in metamedicine terms is separation. Anything to do with the skin is separation. Your skin separates. And working with a client, I have triggered eczema on and off, because what happened to him was his daughter, I think, he don't know where he lived, I think he's in the North Island somewhere, and his daughter went to university somewhere in the South Island. And when she came back, his eczema flared up. And so that's the body healing from that crisis. But it goes a lot deeper than that, because there can be multiple layers of healing and recovery, and healing and recovery, and healing and recovery. It can get quite complex. And that part in metamedicine I hadn't gone into, but just the basic healing, recovery phase I have. And if you think of it just generally, you're stressed out with all that's going on in life, and you go on holiday. What usually happens? You get sick.
You get sick. Yes.
Exactly.
It's interesting though, Debbie, that something, excuse me, like cancer, for example, could be part of a healing process, but yet it can also the client, person. So how does that equate? Big question.
You're challenging my filters here. So how does that equate? We are our own best healers. Yeah. And we've been through this cancer journey far too many times. And I've also worked with an amazing client with my transformational coaching program, just 8 sessions. And she had had breast cancer and she got herself over it. And she had then got where she needed a bone marrow transplant, so leukemia. And that's when she came to me. She said I was very helpful, and it really helped her get through. And, we developed some plans and all these wonderful things that she could have as a positive, really uplifting things to do, a program for her to go through this. And we developed the end result for her, like manifesting, if you will, but in a particular way. And that happened exactly as we had gone through. But she was very, very, very positive person. And that makes a big difference to the journey, the process that people are going through.
Very wisely said. And I think it goes back again to intent, doesn't it? I intend to be well. I intend to not say I have cancer. The body has, and start the healing in every way possible. Diet, thought processes, everything. Sunshine, fresh air, by the sea, walks in the forest, whatever, for full healing.
Yeah.
Maybe meditation, all of those beautiful practices.
Yeah. It can go beyond that. Meditation is great. The power of the mind and meditation together can work wonders.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Could we please now start with looking at beliefs and addictions held within the body? And the first one that I've got down here, which we've chatted about, talking about, is bread and weight loss. Would you like to talk about that, please? Because it's a bit like bread and roses, isn't it? Or maybe not. That was a book, by the way.
Yeah, that world is fascinating too. And that was with EFT, Emotional Freedom Techniques, that this came through many years ago. I used to work with a group of weight loss clients. And I also knew, working with the weight loss clients, that emotional freedom techniques can work. So to the point that they didn't even care whether they were overweight or not, that they were perfectly happy with who they are. But I didn't tell the owner that. But one particular client I was working with there, her weakness, for want of a better word, was bread. She could not give up bread, and that's why she came to me. And so we were working with this, and we were just going through, emotional freedom techniques, not matrix. There might have been a bit of matrix imprinting in there, actually. And so just going through where I was at that stage. Yeah, it was matrix. And she was talking about these puppies that her dog had when she was about 8 years old or something. And she had chosen one of these puppies as her own. And then the family were selling off the puppies. And one day somebody came and took her puppy. And I can imagine what a young child would feel. It is their baby, it had been given away. And her dad said, have some bread that I've just made. Boom, the connection happened. Bread is my comfort. Bread makes me feel better. I need bread to replace the puppy that was taken from me. And so we worked with that bread. We worked with those statements and everything that 8-year-old had said and done in that moment. So that's where the bread and the puppy came from.
That's wonderful. It just shows how emotions sit, one of the strongest feelings I think we have are the emotions, and how they sit within the body and in the cellular complex, and they sit there until they're looked at or dealt with or not.
That's right. And we don't realize they're there.
No. We've also got here oranges, allergy, and grief. What's happening there, Debbie?
Yep. There was this lad that, this is very brief, this one. He got a phone call that his father had died and he had to walk home through an orange grove. And again, from an NLP point of view, there's your your olfactory, your smell, your sight, your hearing, all the senses are gathering the information. We just tend to think what's happening here. But it's things that we hear, it's things that we smell. A perfume, somebody could walk past you with a perfume and it can just trigger you into something else. And you don't always know that that's done it. So it's very powerful.
We're far more complex than we know, aren't we, Debbie? And
Yeah.
the sense of smell is very, very strong. And I think it can take you back to a situation immediately with the sense of a smell where you've smelled it before. I remember in the early days, I'm in Christchurch, and we used to have a coffee shop in town. And I was just a kid. I wasn't drinking coffee at that stage, but they put coffee grounds at the door. So you would smell the coffee grounds and want a coffee. And I remember going past that shop, and I love the smell of these coffee grounds. Maybe that's why I'm a coffee drinker now. I don't know. But, it was so in your face and up your nose, I guess. It was, yeah, it was full on, which is amazing. The sense of smell. Abe reaction to coffee, safe house.
Yes, yeah. This one actually came from Carl Dawson. He told us this in Matrix Reimprinting, that he worked with somebody that had a severe abreaction to coffee. They could smell it on the street next door and they would have almost like an anaphylactic shock. And it turned out that she was in an abusive relationship and there's no coffee involved in there whatsoever. And then she went to a safe house where they made the coffee. So this is a little bit of meta medicine coming in, where she smelt the coffee and that was like a healing for her. But then that started the abreaction of the coffee was healing, and her body went into like this healing crisis. And so, that was worked with and cleared with Carl and in the one session with him. And she went out and had a coffee and it's like, oh my God, don't do that. But she was fine. She was
Wow,
okay.
fascinating. We've also got curtain pole relationship issues. Now, this is a bit of a
I know.
mind bender till I hear what you've written about that or want to speak to about that.
It's,
Curtain pole / relationship issues.
yeah, again, this is an old story about this girl that I think she was training within, it's another thing I did. Another thing I did with two other girls to do with matrix reimprinting. It was birth reimprinting I did. Another story. And so one of those girls there was telling her story about how she had a horrible relationship and she really struggled to get over it. She tried everything, she'd moved into, no, he'd moved out, that's right, or she'd moved somewhere else. And she realized what was triggering her was the curtain pole that he had brought that was still up in her living room. And so the energy of that was still there. So the triggers can be anywhere. I've
Yes.
also heard of somebody had a watch on a nightstand that their partner bought them, and that triggered them. And
Wow.
for myself, I absolutely hated, you have mint with lamb.
Yes.
Yeah. I hated mint with, I would almost gag when
Wow.
that, it was awful. I hate it. I couldn't be anywhere near it. People couldn't have it at the dinner table with me anywhere near it. And I know these things, but then you need to really know them and remember them. And I had remembered sometime later that I then worked with was that when I was younger, I used to go and stay with one of my sisters and I used to get homesick. Guess what? My sister grew outside her back door.
Mint.
So that reminded me of being homesick.
Wow.
And so I worked with that and cleared it. And I don't mind the smell anymore. I didn't like mint of anything, so I'm much, much better. I choose not to have it now, but I don't mind if someone has it when they're
Wow.
next to me anymore.
That's fascinating. I think you've got to have mint with lamb. It's one of my faves, but I can appreciate how that must have reacted with you, with your senses at the time, and how it holds
Yeah,
within the body matrix. Interesting, isn't it? Aren't we fascinating creatures?
it is. Yeah, it's when we've got these heightened senses that
Yes.
all the other senses become aware and
Yeah.
things just get attached to them, illogically attached to them. And
It's
so
very emotive, isn't
we,
it?
mm, Yeah, very
I
much so.
think sense is very emotive.
Mm,
And it can bring up so much, like you're saying, it can trigger a past event, can be happy or otherwise,
that's
with
right.
smell.
Yeah, and music. Isn't that one of the main ones? You hear a song and
Yes,
immediately you're in your
yes,
teens, wherever.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mm.
Can you please talk, Debbie, about where does smoking and other cravings come from in your understanding?
Yeah, I have worked with that sort of thing quite a bit, and that is the cravings are pretty easy to work with. And I was going to bring something with me, wasn't I, to work with it, but I have left it out there. Just remembered about that one. So with the craving, you have to break it down, and this is just going back to the aspects of things. So if I can just answer that question in a way of aspects, and aspects as like in a fear of flying, because that's an easy way to describe aspects. And so if you have a craving for something, be it chocolate or smoking, or if any of us have a craving or an addiction being on these devices, maybe some of us might, you can break it down into aspects. And aspects I personally look at like an orange. So you've got the skin of the orange, which is the craving, or we'll call it a mild addiction if you're addicted to drinking coffee or looking at devices. So that's the skin of the orange. And inside you have all the segments that make it up. So in this instance, the skin of the orange is the aircraft, the fear of flying. And so inside of that, you have the turbulent, the takeoff, the landing, the people on the plane, the food, and all different aspects of that, the length of the flight. Are you confined? And it can get so complex within those aspects within the fear of flying. But with something like, say, smoking or even chocolate, if anyone really wants to get over chocolate, don't know if anybody does. But if you did, then what you would do is have the piece of chocolate in front of you at the time that you wanted it, same as if you smoke, and maybe different, a little bit different with vaping. That's a bit different way to do it. But with an actual cigarette, you'd have it in front of you, and you'd want it at that time, and then you just tap. And there's slight wording involved in here, and again, ideally with a practitioner, but you tap like even though you want that product, whatever it is. You really want it, you really want it, and you just talk about how you really, 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 really want it. Yeah. Just focusing on, again, those sensations in your body. And then as it starts to go down, which it will, you'll think, well, maybe I don't want it as much. And they go, let's just see if I do want it. And then what I get the people to do is to bring that substance to their face. So the chocolate, you'd smell it, same with the physical cigarette, you'd smell it. And that might raise it back up again. And then you can actually hold it under your nose and just tap for what it smells like, just really get the sensations going again, and then put it down and do a little bit more tapping. And when you pick it back up again, it will smell completely different. It will smell awful, putrid, and you won't want it.
Wow,
That's how that works.
amazing.
That's for a craving.
Yes, I love it.
Whether does that last? Sometimes it does, but often it can wear off because you've got the addiction side as to why that happened in the first place. So this is just for the craving. And if you keep doing it, yes, it can be permanent, but you very likely have to do it more than once or twice for that to happen. So this lady that had the bread, she could have done the same thing with the bread herself, but it would have taken longer than us doing it together.
You're giving us very, very wonderful tools, Debbie, for healing and to know what we can do in the moment, particularly with fight or flight, and for releasing what no longer serves us in the body, even though you say sometimes we may have to go back and do it again. They're very powerful tools, and I thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. In your practice, Debbie, you say you read a person using frequency. Can you explain how that works, please?
Yeah, I'd like to. I'm not quite sure. because that's my innate gift. I've had that since I fell off the swing, I guess. I don't know. I've always been able to do that. I don't, although I say yes, read the person, that can be a bit, oh, I'm not, somebody's reading me, I do know how to switch it off nowadays, and I did learn how to do that. Whereas in the younger days, it was constantly on, full bore, and anyone that came past me, or stood next to me, I just knew things about them. And I think that's just an innate gift where now I know differently, is that, our energy fields extend at least 10 feet, at least, if not more, only 10 feet, because that's how much the equipment can measure. And we are all intertwined, interwoven within each other. And, it's like the empath can sense this or that, it's just the heightened awareness around each of us. And some are just more vibrationally attuned to that than others. And I guess that's something I have always been more vibrationally attuned and been
Yes,
able to sense these things. But
absolutely.
with the cards that I used to read, I still have a few decks of cards. I've got some really new ones now, and they've come a long way, long way. But the tuning forks now take precedence over the cards because they get the information quicker, like with the barcodes and the frequency within that and the information held within that frequency. That is pretty much instant. Whereas often where you go and sit in front of a card reader, it takes a moment or two for them to look at the cards and then start speaking to you. The tuning forks is pretty instant. And unlike the cards, the tuning forks clear and balance things back out, whereas the cards just give you information.
You're just a miracle worker, you are. That's fascinating. So with the tuning forks, you're reading frequency, you're healing frequency, but you're also picking up the story around that person with the barcoding within the frequency. Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's an amazing tool in more ways than one to be using, isn't it?
Yeah, I never say that I'm healing anything. It's the tuning fork smooths out the waveform, the discordance waveform. It smooths it out. And once it's smooth, so anxiety for me, not so much on an oscilloscope, for example, in a hospital, is very jagged, very jagged. So the tuning fork connects with that jaggedness, the barcode within the jaggedness, the frequency, etc., the information, and then it negates that jaggedness and just smooths it out.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. Could you please speak about opening the subconscious mind to activate healing, or do you think that's been covered in what you have been talking about?
Opening the subconscious mind, I now believe with what I've been through, comes through the heart. So that'd be my own personal opinion. When you come through the heart space, everything that happens in the heart then moves upwards into your subconscious mind and gives that the freedom to explore. That's the way I would see that.
Beautiful. And we know it's all about heart, coming from the heart, healing the heart-mind connection, working conjointly rather than separately is key. And particularly in these times, I think we're getting more downloads of information than we have in the past. We're opening up more if we allow and if we are ready. And also the other thing I had in mind when you were talking about 10 feet away from each other before you would maybe disconnect from the auric field, but with quantum entanglement, we would be in connection right now, Debbie, and we're miles apart. And with those guests with us at the moment and those that we'll see, there is again, would you say, a quantum field around what we're doing?
100%. It's all around the earth we live in. And we are all connected to that. These powerful chakras we have in our hands, we have them on the soles of our feet. And whenever we stand on the earth with our soles of our feet, we are connected with all sentient beings and all life on earth.
Beautifully said, and I love it. And you're so right. We are all connected. Absolutely are. We're all one.
Mm.
And
That's right.
people, I would suggest, look at that very closely to becoming more one with each other rather than abandonment, division, separation, which is not who we are as a species. So thank you for bringing that up.
Mhm.
What are some of the gems you would like to share, taking us forward through these times of awakening? Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Is there anything else you'd like to share about these times, Debbie, that would be helpful?
I think I would echo what most are saying today anyway, and it is the only thing that matters really is what's in your heart. And that is your biggest form of protection, your greatest form of protection. That's where, get out of your head, and many of us need to do that. I'm not saying people here in 5D, but there's lots of headspace stuff going on out there should we choose to listen to it. But we can listen to it, but it's sensing through our heart space. More than ever, we need to be in this heart space and offer our healing up to our Earth Mother to help raise her vibration and to each other, like the Care Bears, if you will, with that image. Yeah, I always see that. I love that image. And, like the paper dolls that you see just holding the hands, that's who I see us, for us to visualize that and sense that and feel that constantly. And I do believe that we will come closer together as a humanity with zero judgment, zero division for anybody.
Debbie, thank you so much for your beautiful words of wisdom. You're a very clear seeing lady, you're a very clear knowing lady, and you practice what you preach, which is so beautiful in helping humanity heal itself. I want to thank you so much. Are you open to having a few questions if we have any
Yeah.
questioners?
If
And
anybody would like to ask any questions, I'm more than open to that. And thank you very much, Jude.
you're very welcome. Before we do that, where can people reach you and what are you offering them?
Can reach me via my website, Rezonate, rezonate.co.nz. You will also find me by my name and Rezonate on YouTube, which I would encourage you to look at. I've got a number of self-help videos there. I'm all about self-help, and I think you may find some things there. I've got a how-to playlist with various things in there, how to dowse, how to do various things in there as well. Yeah, I like teaching people how to
It's
do things.
wonderful. The learning's always wonderful, isn't it, Debbie?
Oh, yeah.
I think to have the curiosity of a child, the open-heartedness of a child, is the way to go. To be
Definitely.
curious about life, to want to learn, to want to know, to want to experience, which is what we're here for, is a beautiful thing.
That's
So,
exactly that. That brings me just to one saying that came through me, is that the soul has the experience and it's the ego that has the lesson.
that's beautifully said. I love that. Could you say that again, please? That's powerful.
Yeah. The soul has the experience. It's the ego that has the lesson.
Thank you. That is beautifully said. I love that. That is a gem, absolute gem. Thank you.
Do with
Does,
me.
any, does anyone have any questions for our lovely Debbie? I've got a little note here for you that says that was wonderful, Debbie. Just so much to encompass. Thank you so much.
You're
So
welcome.
that is really, really lovely. Hello, how are you?
Hi, that's
Hi.
fascinating, Debbie. Thank you very much. You mentioned chakras, and it just, in my curiosity and wonder, Jude's words exactly, could you clear the chakras with tapping?
I don't see why not, because it's all based on intention. Whatever you put your intention to, you can work with. It's as simple as that. In my world, I try to keep things simple and have my own way of thinking, as we all do, but I don't see why not. You can just tap with the intention. You know, you could maybe tap on your chakras, but myself, I'll probably tap on one point of my body, this
Yeah.
one, because there's a chakra here. So I tap on a non-chakra point and just give the intention of visually clearing your chakras and sense what it's like. I personally don't go for the spinning right, spinning left. And the reason for that is when I was doing reconnective healing with Eric Pearl, just these little gems that come out now and then, don't they? And he was saying about how we get carried away when you must do this right this many times. He said if you do that one way and you're looking down at it, that's clockwise, and you do that and it's anti-clockwise, you go, well, what difference does it make? So don't get hung up on the clockwise, anti-clockwise. That's what I would suggest. Just give the intention of them being cleared. But you can do it in the shower. There's a great way to clear your chakras, is just imagine all the beautiful white light of the shower just pouring over you and washing all the dirt away.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's a beautiful idea. And when you know that water has so much consciousness and what you put to it happens with intent, as we say, everything is intent. That's a really beautiful process to be doing. Hello there.
G'day, g'day. Thanks for a wonderful evening. It was fascinating. Just the one question, is there any frequencies or processes or rituals that you can do to enhance dreams and also remember dreams?
Any processes or things you can do. You can always give this sounds like a stuck record, give the intention to remember them. That's the first thing. If you were to use frequency, I would suggest, if you have any tuning forks, I mean, you've got music where you are anyway, you know, just choose a frequency that you really like. How should I say? There's a lot of people are saying that this frequency is for this and this frequency is for that, and the chakras are this frequency. And I personally believe that we are each our own vibrational, unique energy being with our own frequencies. And so the frequencies that may be right for one may be different for another. So I would say choose a frequency that resonates with you, more of a high vibrational frequency, and just the highest sounding ones, because they then open up more the higher chakras. And just play that, either have some headphones on before you go to bed and just, you know, doze away to it or meditate to it or blank out to it with the intention of having pleasant dreams that you will remember in the morning.
Fabulous. Thank you. It was a brilliant question. Thank you so much. Debbie, I'd like to thank you so much for a fascinating evening. Oh, there's another wee message here. Debbie, I love what you said. The soul that has the experience, it's for the ego to listen, I think she says. Is this the opportunity for learning? I would say so, but what would you say to that, Debbie?
Just go with your soul. So when things happen in your life, it would be, I experienced that. It's that, again, that level of disassociation. I've experienced anger. I've experienced sadness. It's like, wow, I came here for all these experiences, and look at all the experiences I've had, rather than being on the, all these things I've had to go through. It just puts another slant to it. Yeah, and it's the ego has the lesson. And so that get into that, oh God, I've had all this going on in my life. You know, that's victim
mode. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, you know, what lessons do I need to take from this? Well, take the experience.
Beautiful. Puts it in a whole different light, doesn't it? It really, really does.
Yeah.
Debbie, I'd like to thank you so much once again. You're an absolute delight. It was so lovely to have you on. Thank you for being my guest on A Cosmic Cuppa. It's been wonderful.
My pleasure.
Thank you. So I'm Judith Ann, and if you're watching this on YouTube, please like, share and subscribe. And remember, peace on earth starts with you. It starts with me. So God bless and good night, everybody.